And there he is, the man himself, Stephen Hopkins. Hasn't changed a day in 40 years.
I haven't seen that for a while. That one.
I only found out about it yesterday, the day before. So I thought that'd be nice. But
yes.
How do we begin? Should we begin with that? How did that become about? ABC's The Look of Love music video.
I did the sets for it. So I
Okay.
designed for it. And often when I was doing rock videos, I would do the sets, and I ended up appearing in lots of them because they were cheaper to do. Then things were pretty cheap. Well, sometimes the rock videos were really cheap, and then sometimes we had tons of money for them too, which is bizarre. But I did about 120 in my first year. Sometimes you do 7 or 8 or 10 a week. Yeah.
Bloody hell. So that's a lot. And you had the band in most of them or not, or just?
Well, in those days, the band didn't have to be in them because they were more sort of art pieces, but generally they were. But I started off storyboarding them and then designing the sets for them, so I could be in multiple studios doing all that stuff at the same time. When I started directing, I couldn't do that many.
Because that was the thing, mostly back in the 80s and 90s, people went from music videos to directing movies.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing music videos from 1981 to, I don't know, 84 or something, 85, yeah.
So was it valuable lessons in making films, or was it completely different?
You got some bad habits out of it, but you learned a lot. And there were no rules. I mean, it must have been kind of, it wasn't like going to film school because there were no rules at all. But we all of us loved movies.
Right.
So I was a comic book freak actually growing up, and I wanted to draw for Marvel Comics, which I did briefly for Marvel UK. And I always wanted to be a comic book artist, but when I got there, I didn't like it very much because you're just sitting in a room by yourself all day, not being able to keep up, with the schedule. So it was nice to move sideways from that into storyboarding rock videos, because then you got to work with other people, and it was fun. And I think the first video I ever worked on was a Duran Duran video, I think Planet Earth, And then,
okay, nice.
But then I did about 400 of them all together in different roles.
Crazy. But yes, it's I guess it's a lost art now, because does anyone even have rock videos anymore, music videos anymore?
I don't think so, but people still make them. I think you can watch them on certain channels, because I think some quite big budget ones are still done.
Yes.
Certainly for hip hop, I think, too, more than anything else. And obviously people like Taylor Swift will write, direct, and star. Those kind of people who do everything. But I mean, it was grueling, but it was a hoot. It was such a ride. Just never slept. I didn't need sleep because I was only 20 something. So
yes, those were the days.
Sleep was persistent. Yeah.
So was it like film 20 music videos and then go to the clubs with the bands or something like that, or?
It wasn't that glamorous. More like 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd be clearing up after everyone went home. But yeah, sometimes it was very glamorous. I did lots of Duran Duran, Elton John videos. We go all over the world and have exciting adventures.
Okay. Did you do the Girls on Film one? The X-rated one?
No, I didn't do that one. I did a bunch of the other ones with them. I was lucky enough. I worked with Billy Idol, Mick Jagger. I did a bunch of stuff with him as a director, and the Stones not as a director, and just it was really fun. You often work with heavy metal bands. They did tons of videos, and the Queen I worked with, and so you got to, and lots of bands who were never heard of again. But I went to Australia for to do some Elton John videos, and he decided to get married to a woman, which was quite surprising for everyone. So I ended up staying there for a few extra months. And when I was there, this is 1984, I ended up falling in love with Sydney and a girl, and I got loads of work because a lot of the bands were living in Australia there because there was no tax and stuff. And it was just a fantastic place to be, So.
because you were born in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And then where did you go from there? England and then Australia, or was it around?
I was born in Jamaica, and then we traveled around the States for a while, mostly in the back of a car. And then I came back to England in the 60s, went to school in England, left England in the early 80s, went to New York actually to do rock videos. Then I went to Sydney, supposed to be for a couple of months, but ended up for 5 years. But during that 5 years, I came and did the Highlander in New York. And I would come across to do big commercials and stuff. I started doing commercials as well after rock videos. I did stage musicals, actually. I did a bunch of them too.
Okay. Are they difficult? Because it's all live. Things can happen.
I did a huge stage musical at Rasputin, which I wrote and co-wrote and directed and designed. And it was a huge theater with 2,300 people, and it was 500 costumes and 40 scene changes. And so it was so terrifying every night. Yeah, that was pretty scary because things could really go wrong, you know. And it was very ambitious, but it was exciting. And I learned an incredible amount, I think.
Oh, excellent. Because you mentioned Highlander. What is it? Background stuff or second unit that you did?
Yeah, Russell Mulcahy, who was a great mentor of mine, and I was very close friends with him. He asked me to come and be the designer on it, and I said, Russell, look, I'm 25 years. I wouldn't know where to start on something this huge. So I did lots of big rock videos and huge commercials for millions of dollars, but I'd never done a film. I didn't know. So I kind of, sadly, I kind of pulled out. And then he said, well, come and do second unit. And it was just so cool. You know, I shot in London, I shot in Scotland, I shot lots of stuff with Sean Connery. I was the Kurgan. I was with the Kurgan more than anyone else. So I did a lot of Kurgan stuff. But
nice.
Big battle scenes and lots of helicopter stuff in Scotland and London. And yeah, it was an amazing experience.
No, that's nice. Yeah, because the film looks amazing. I know I've loved it since it came out, but I didn't get to see it in the cinema, so I saw it on video. But yeah, but unfortunately, it didn't do well.
No, it didn't do well initially, but since then it's done really, really, really well.
Yeah, was it 3 TV series, cartoons, and sequels somehow?
There's nothing really ever been quite like it. I know they're redoing it now, but there was a certain brilliant, you know, innovative quality that Russell put into it, and all the like Queen and great casting, and it was just such an original film, and I don't think there's really ever anything like it. I think it's a really rare, odd, weird, cool rock video. There's a version which is a European version, which is longer than the American version. The American version got kind of sliced and diced.
Yeah.
And the European version is fantastic. If you can ever find it, it's about 15 minutes longer.
Ah.
Yeah.
Nice. Because it's all the transitions between old and new, and it's all seamless and amazing.
Yeah, he's a master of that stuff, Russell. He was really, it was just a great stylist.
Yeah. Was it Sean Connery was only available for a week, 2 weeks? Was it?
1 week. Yeah, he'd come out of retirement because I think he made a lot of bad investments in Spain and lost everything. So he was very happy and you know, furious with things. And that was the first film he did when he came out of retirement. He went straight from there, I think, to do The Untouchables and all these other films, and Name of the Rose, and made an incredible comeback. You know,
the great film. Yeah, Indiana Jones.
When I was in Jamaica, they shot Dr. No. Ian Fleming was our next door neighbor, and on one side, and so I got a photo of me with Sean Connery and Ursula Andress on the beach. You know,
as you do.
In the opening scene of Dr. No, these three guys go in and kill my dad's secretary in his office, and my dad was a sort of engineer out there, so they used a bauxite mine that he'd built for Dr. No's headquarters. And so ever since then, I always wanted to work with Sean Connery. I always wanted to do a James Bond film. Always wanted to.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see what the next James Bond film's like. Probably sooner than we thought, but well, I might as well get to it while here. Jason from Backtrack Cinema is asking, what challenges did you find directing Predator 2? Many, isn't it?
I actually hadn't seen the original one when I was offered this, and then I watched the original one. It was so fantastic, and John McTiernan was at Fox when I was doing this. So I asked him a bunch of questions, and I was only 28 or something, I think, and then a writer's strike happened. So it was shot during a writer's strike with not a complete script.
Right.
And so we weren't literally allowed to talk to the Thomas brothers because of the strike. And I'd just done a Nightmare on Elm Street film, which was done during another strike. And so I was given 5 scripts to make something out of. So I thought, this Hollywood thing's weird. You keep on working really without finished scripts. And I just storyboarded both those films. I did 1,000 pages of storyboards for Predator 2. And it was all pre-digital, so it was all film opticals. We shot most of the film opticals on 70mm, which was quite cumbersome and complicated. And then, you're making a sequel. It originally was Arnold, but he couldn't do that and Terminator 2. And Terminator 2 is such an amazing film. So it was originally Arnold and Danny together, and then at the last second, it was just Danny who I was really keen on being the lead. He's not an obvious lead action guy. He'd been in Lead Weapon, but he hadn't been the lead sort of actiony bloke. So he went into training, and I think we didn't have a huge amount of money. And we just kind of went for it. And I was just like rampaging around Los Angeles, blowing up shit everywhere. And I remember the opening day, we shot the opening sequence, which was this all-out battle in downtown LA with helicopters landing in the middle of the street and blowing up police cars, none of which you could do now in downtown. No. It all be done visual effects-wise.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It was a blast, yeah. Literally, yeah.
I got my 2 comics here as well as my VHS, so I can go there. Now, my question is... I
worked with Stan Winston a lot on all the different new games. Great. He was such a great crew of guys. Amazing company working with Stan.
Yeah. What direction did you give Terry Weigel for her scene when she's...
Well, it was supposed to be someone else, actually. Terry was chosen at the last second by Joel, and there were a lot of laughs going on, but actually it was very. It's uncomfortable. It always sounds funny, but it's really uncomfortable shooting those scenes. No one really wants to do them. They're all a bit embarrassing, and
I wouldn't know where to look when it's going on. But because there was a lot more violence and gore that was cut out. Is that true?
Not a huge amount.
Okay.
There were I think we went back and forth with the MPAA a couple of dozen times. And in those days, you couldn't make changes so quick as you can now. And,
yes.
And it was going out in 4,000 cinemas, and I was still shooting during the sound mix. It was so late, and so the MPAA, I think, were really determined to give it the first ever X rating.
Oh.
They wanted to do it on some film, and this was the one they really wanted to go for. And I think then Joel had fights before, and I had a run-in with them on Nightmare on Elm Street 2, fight as well, Predator, Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
Okay.
And
yes.
But in the end, we just kept on tiny bits, lots of tiny bits. But because we were editing on film, it's not so easy just to, you have to do a new negative every time to make it send it out. And it was... and I was working with great Mark Goldblatt, the great editor on it. And we had a steam editing machine about the size of this massive room because you had to crawl across it, basically. We had so many different, doing 70mm and 35mm and all the sound stuff we made and edit. It was enormous. But it was, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just running. I just thought, I can't believe I'm doing this. And it was just a hoot, and there's not, as I said, there wasn't a massive amount of dialogue in that film because we just sort of, a lot of charging around and doing stuff. But a great cast, Bill Paxton and Maria Conchita Alonso and Bill Paxton and
the Lucy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What a character.
Because his death was that one of the main bits that was cut. You're supposed to see him stuck to the wall in 2 halves, and then his legs drop, but you have to.
No, it was actually there was so much violence in the film. We didn't try and push it all the time. I think we were cutting frames out, cut frames, cut frames. I mean, there's no whole sequence missing, just lots of bits. You know.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So when you see stuff like what is it, Terrifier films come out, and you think it's different times now. What they should.
Yes. I'm actually relatively squeamish, so I don't actually. I haven't seen Terrifier. My daughter tells me it's great. I haven't seen it.
I've seen the first two, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure about watching the third one, especially when it's 2.5 hours of it. So yeah.
Is it 2.5 hours? Wow.
Well, the second one's 2.5 hours at least. So I think the third one's about the same.
Right.
But it is so over the top that it does pass. So yes, Josh has said you directed some great sequels over the years. Was it difficult to stamp your vision on established characters?
Because
Freddy and the Predator.
Yeah, Freddy.
The Lost in Space.
Gosh, while I was doing Predator 2, I just done Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and Predator 2. I was off at Alien 3. I thought I can't do another sequel after I can't do 5, 2, 3. So I turned that down. But it was well, you know what you're trying to do something with the same power, but you take the original version and you try and stick it on its head, and do something different. Yes. And that's all you can do. And there are so few sequels that are better than the original. I mean, Terminator 2 was as good as the first, I thought. Aliens wasn't as great as Alien, but it was fantastic. I mean, there are some sequels, Godfather 2, whatever. But there's you can't, once you lose that initial shock. I mean, when I did Predator 2, everyone knew what he looked like, which wasn't revealed until the first one. Everyone knew what Freddy looked like, so he tried to change it up a bit. And obviously we saw him being born. So all the time we shot him inside someone's pregnant womb. So that hadn't been done before.
Exactly. It's all new.
But it was, we shot it, quite fast and cheap and quick in a shoe factory in Culver City in LA. So it was, and we were, because we didn't have much money, had to be really clever. And I had Alan Monroe, the visual effects guy who did a lot of Tim Burton's films. Okay. And so we just kind of made things and did stop motion stuff, and it was really fun. It was a real hoot.
Yeah, because it is a fun film, but yeah, I know it's not as high as people place some of the others, but
yes. Well, you can't. I think they went less. You can't keep the stat. You can't keep it as brilliant. I mean, the first Nightmare on Elm Street scared the fucking shit out of me. God. And you can't really scare people after the first one. You can make them jump, and but it's it's quite. Maybe it's a bit European. I think Nightmare 5. It was very gothic. I think.
Well, yes, the motorcycle scene is top notch with him fusing to it and everything, and then the girl overeating like Mr. Creosote and everything like that.
Yeah.
But
I put Super Freddy in. That wasn't in the original.
Oh yes,
script. That'd be fun.
Was that like the third actor to play Freddy or something?
Oh right, yeah.
Well, because it's only the remake, and then I think there's one guy in number 2 that comes into the shower in the steam. I think that's not Robert Englund before they brought him in, but
can't remember that
bit. It's a while ago. Matt Chatz is here. He's from Dublin, and he's been watching your work since Dangerous Game. Now, I don't know what he thinks about Blown Away though, with the accents going on there.
Well, the sad thing about Blown Away is that we got, Jeff and Tommy Lee spent a long time with dialect coaches, and they did great accents. And we showed it to an American audience, and they said, we can't understand anything.
That's what I thought, the trouble.
Because they're used to those two very famous voices. So we had to loop the entire film with both actors, which was awful. I make their accents worse. We showed it again. They said, we can't understand them. So we had to loop the entire film again and make their accents worse and worse and worse. And then people say, we can understand it, but their accents are terrible. So It was really sad. I mean, I can obviously understand.
Yes.
For Brit, so
the Europeans would have been all right.
Yeah, I mean, I had no problems at all, but the American audiences said we just don't know what they're talking about because I don't think Tommy Lee or Jeff changed their accents ever really for any film that they'd ever done, and they're such well-known actors. You know, Sean Connery, when I did the opening line in Highlander with him, and he said, "I'm Jean Santos Ramirez from the court of Spain," and that's fine. It's Sean Connery, right?
Exactly. He can be Russian. He can be anything.
And none of us saw it coming. None of us realized it would be a problem. You know, because they're speaking English. There's lots of Irish people in America, so
yeah.
But
I never had a problem.
It actually really hurt the film, I think, big time.
Yeah,
changed the act.
I do love that film. So I've got the explosion scene here because this is how I trapped you with the who were the two stuntmen in this scene. If you just watch this, who bless them, because that is one of my favorite explosions on film.
Yeah, it was pretty outrageous. We had 17 cameras, I think, because once again, it wasn't digital; it was all done for real. We bought an entire boat, stripped it all out, and built everything with balsa wood. No nails, nothing metal.
Okay.
And then we had to close down the whole of Boston Harbor, and all radios had to be. You couldn't use radios because the explosions were set off with radio signals.
Yeah.
So they had to shut down all radios on all boats in Boston Harbor, and it was. And we were a long way away from it. We were a couple of 100 yards away from it with most of the cameras, and we got blown off our feet by it. So
bloody hell, yeah. Because did it blow windows out in East Boston?
It did. It set fire to McDonald's a mile away. It moved one warehouse off its foundations.
Yes.
A lot of people were terrified, but doing something about doing stuff for real. You know, and a couple of these shots are blue screen shots actually that they're Jeff and
yes, I cut those.
Forrest in there amongst the other stuff, but
yeah, but yeah, they get close to stuff flying around for start.
Yeah, I mean, we did explosions right in the middle of the city where they were so difficult to do, but we used silent gas explosions.
Okay.
So they didn't have the force of this real explosion stuff.
Excellent. Because even the cameras you can see shake sometimes at the shots.
Yeah, and they're 100 yards away. So
Because luckily they didn't boil. But Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in there in one scene, isn't he? Was that any particular reason?
Well, I'd done
Judgment Night,
and he was going to play Forrest's role actually. At the last second, he couldn't. The film he was doing went over, and so he pulled a sort of stunt on me and sent a fake pretend bomb full of chocolate to the studios to say sorry, but the bomb squad thought it was real, so they had to shut down the whole of LA for a while, and then he got in kind of trouble. But we explained it all away, and as a result of that, he agreed to come and do a day with us, on Blown Away, and he's quite a character, that bloke.
Yeah, because like you say, it's in Judgment Day in '94, which I always confuse with Trespass sometimes, particularly the poster. Is that ever a common thing?
It's the same producer, Larry Gordon, and Larry Gordon had been one of the producers of Predator 2, and then he started up, and then he ran Fox, and then he started his own company, Largo. So he produced Trespass with Walter Hill. They were big buddies, and I did lots of Tales from the Crypts with Walter Hill and all of those guys later. And Judgment Night was. It was such an interesting story, but it was one of those things again where I was given 5 scripts and say, make something out of this. And I worked with lots of different writers, really good writers. And you had to be so careful at everything. But I think it was quite a good film in a way. And then the music soundtrack was great. And then when the film came out on opening night in Brooklyn, a whole bunch of gang members stood up and shot each other.
Okay.
In the cinema. and the film got pulled the first weekend, and so no one really got to see it that much. But I think because the soundtrack was so successful, people did see it later.
Yes, I did hear a lot of people are fans of that, because I was thinking of the score. It's by Alan Silvestri, isn't it? It sounds a lot like Predator 2, or is that just me?
Yeah, but I did Blown Away and
Yes.
Predator 2 and Judgment Night with Alan. Yeah.
That's a good, because Josh's Predator is fantastic, by the way. I think it is pretty much everyone's second or third favorite of the franchise. So, were there any plans for a Predator sequel about Raphael Adoloni?
Do I know who Raphael Adoloni is?
I was hoping you did. Is that the guy with the gun at the end? Hang on, let me check my comic book.
No. Oh, it was in the Predator film? Or...
Oh, no, that's Vito de la... No, hang on, yeah. Try again, Slipknot. Let us know what you think. Yes, that explosion is fantastic. Films today simply lack the realism thanks to CGI. Because how much of the budget went on that explosion?
God,
whole scene, I guess.
1993. I think it must have cost well over $1 million, that one shot. I think.
Yeah, that was certainly worth it.
Which was, but they had much bigger budgets then than they do now. Even we didn't have huge budgets, but you got a lot more for your money, than you did then.
Yeah,
and I mean, once again, you wouldn't be able to do any of that stuff now because of all the how terrorism has changed the world.
Yeah, because Ali says you're a great director, so there you go.
Thank you, Ali. Appreciate it.
So yes, Matt Chat says his brother calls Judgment Night the Warriors of the 90s, and he doesn't think he's wrong.
That's what I was hoping it would be, because I thought the Warriors was a fantastic film, another Walter Hill film, and a really, really brilliant change. And we actually were trying to make sure it wasn't too much like the Warriors, because there were a lot of similarities about it. But what a great film that was! It was so cool.
Yeah. Because do you like the version that he redid with the comic book transitions?
What is that one? A complete remake? I know they made a complete.
Well, no, he re-edited it because the technology.
Oh, I don't know.
These comic book transitions in.
I saw it when it came out. I'm not sure if I've seen it since then. But...
yeah, it definitely. It's like in the last 20 years or something, I think.
Is it good?
I don't know. It's not as gritty, I don't think, when you get these comic books frames come up and the colorization. It looks lovely, but then sort of takes you out from the gritty 70s side of it.
Right, which is, I think, I really believe in trying to, however crazy the story is, to try and ground it and make it feel that it could possibly have happened. It's a thing I like in movies, There's different types of movies, right? There's some movies where you just pretend at all, that any of it's real. And then there's some movies where you ground, if you look at a great horror movie like The Exorcist, you actually get a sense that it really happened, and that makes it much scarier for me, I think.
Oh yeah, that one definitely works. So yeah, Jason says, loved your work on Predator 2, and 24 was brilliant. The episodes you directed in season 1 were amazing. Did you expect it to be that big and be having 8 more seasons after that?
No, I'd never done TV before, so it was during another writer's strike, and the film I was doing couldn't go forward because of the writer's strike. Yeah. But there was a script for this out, and I hadn't done TV before, and they asked me to get involved, and I'd written a script myself, which was all in split screen, so I wanted to try that. It's an old 70s style, but I wanted to try that out and show people. I knew Kiefer. Kiefer was a mate of mine, and I persuaded him to give it a go as well. And he didn't really believe anything was going to come out of it. And I don't think about whether I think things are going to come out of it or not. I just wanted to try out this crazy idea. And I shot the clock next to my bed, and tried all this split screen stuff, which actually they didn't want really. But then they ended up they put it all back in, and it's partly successful. It's successful a lot because of Kiefer, I think, but it's partly successful because of its timing. And William Friedkin, who did The Exorcist and the French Connection stuff, was someone I got to speak to a bunch of times, and I'm such a giant fan of his. And I said to him, French Connection, they did this thing where they would go and rehearse the scenes, the lighting cameraman would light it, and then they would bring the operators in, camera operators, who didn't know quite what was going to happen. And so you get this sense that it's really happening.
Okay.
And I told Bill that I'd stolen that idea, and I did that a lot on the series, the two camera operators. And one of the reasons we went, to handheld and stuff was because we didn't have any money at all. So, and I grew up in England on kind of documentary type cop shows. And so I just kind of thought the story was so ridiculous in lots of ways. It wasn't remotely real that I thought I'd just try and put this veneer of believability over in it. And you got really we had good actors. And so that all really helped. And then 9/11 happened, I think, which brought it into the zeitgeist, I think, and made it very successful, I think.
That is a good point.
People became interested in that side of things more.
Yeah, because you produced the latest series, Legacy, as well, didn't you? Or executive produced, or?
Yeah, I did the pilot for it,
right?
And then I couldn't do the series, but they brought me back at the end to try and work on the last 4 or 5 episodes because I think they got a bit tiny. They weren't happy with it, and I got a tiny bit lost, I think.
Okay.
But I said to them at the time, I thought, let's just make it really different, try to make it. And it was such a huge franchise. They couldn't get away from, too much. And I think it didn't work well. I don't think because of the opening. Then you find out later on in that series that all these kind of Muslim terrorists you think are crazy are not at all what they seem. It's the American gunman that is the bad guy.
Right.
It started off just after, that fat orange cretin got in the first time. It started off just as it opened, I think, a few days after he got in, and there was all these Muslim terrorists, and people went, "Oh, old,"
Yeah.
Corey Hawkins was great, but it was there were just no one really was sure what it should be, and everyone but it was.
That's a shame.
Pilot was terrific. It was terrific fun to do, and Corey's great.
Cool. Tommy Gunn says he rented Judgment Night when he was 14. It was incredible. But he wants to know, what is Denis Leary like? Is he as intense in person as he is on screen?
Yeah, he's intense. He's funny intense. We had a great time, I think, and I think he's a pretty good bad guy in that. I think.
Oh yeah,
there were so many different versions of the bad guys. There were Hell's Angels. There were black gangs. There were Polish gang. There were everything. We were trying. We just didn't want to do anything too. It's hard not to copy what's been done before. It's not a completely original idea, except I like the idea of it that these ordinary guys go downtown and take the wrong turn, and then Dennis and Eric Schrody from House of Pain was one of the bad guys, and then Green and a friend, actually an older sister of mine was the other actor, but it was interesting. We shot, it was grueling. We shot in Chicago, which was a pretty tough place then. I have to say, it was pretty. Apocalyptic Chicago at that time in 1992, and we shot, I think, 11 weeks of night. There was actually Predator 2. I shot 10 weeks of nights. I think it was just, and
that's a nighttime one.
That gets on you after a while, and both of those films were done in pretty rough parts of town too. So we saw a lot of stuff that you wish we hadn't seen.
Yeah, we heard the stories of Predator with bodies and the garbage and stuff like that.
And there were similar ones in Judgment Night too.
Crazy. Because you did. Oh, have you actually seen The Ghost in the Darkness since you made it? Because there's rumors that you haven't watched it in the older days.
I don't really watch any of my films very much. But I did find a VHS the other day of the original cut of it, which is quite interesting. And it was much more about the lions being a symbol of something.
Okay.
African, like more of a supernatural thing. But I don't know. I look online and I see all this stuff that I was supposed to hate the film, which
Well, yeah,
I don't think I said most of it, but
it's like a quote that's been misread or something
I've
like
had
that
lots of
mostly.
fights over it. I was disappointed that we weren't allowed to make. There are elements of it that weren't as good as I wanted it to be, for sure. But it was a pretty good film. I think it was a very difficult film to make. Gosh,
I'm sure.
Years and years and years, and it was grueling. It was really full on. And I caught that bad time. He just come off under Dr. Moreau, and he wasn't really on his game.
No, that he had trouble in that one as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the early 90s, he was just known for after The Doors, he'd gone a bit method and all sorts of difficult to work with, and all these rumors that were spreading around. I don't know if any of it was actually true or
not. Yeah, he was not completely. It was hard to work with, I think, for me and everyone else, and yeah, and if you're in the middle of the African bush. With that, it made it just, you just rely on people being on the game because
yeah, and you've got a cast of thousands in the background as well, so herding people around every time you need to shoot something is probably
so you want people to know their lines and turn up and do their job, and because I'm lucky enough to work with a lot of fantastic actors and actresses in my career, and it's exciting when you see the really good ones at the top of the game. It's cool.
Because Michael Douglas was producer that came in, then he's top billed, but he's only in it for like 40 minutes or less than that.
That's it was Sean Connery until the last second, and then which made more sense because there were not really any Americans in Africa at that time. And then Michael took over the last second.
Nice, because he's two more greats. That was got Morgan Freeman and Gene Hackman in Under Suspicion.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, how did you direct those two?
I got on like a house on fire with them. Actually, I had a great time. So we, it was kind of a bit of a play-like film. So we rehearsed it for weeks. And Gene is he gives directors notoriously a tough time to see if they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But gosh, he was so intuitively bright. You'd rehearse in a play, and you could just see him waiting for some inspiration to come that would be not what you expected to be. And he and Morgan were big buddies, and they called me up out of the blue. I didn't actually believe it was Morgan when he first got the phone. I thought it was one of my friends walking around. And I'm such a huge fan of Gene Hackman. I was pretty nervous about meeting him, but we shot it really fast in Puerto Rico. It was a remake of a French movie, and we tried to give it a couple of twists at the original French movie, which was a fantastic film. It wasn't really an out-and-out thriller, pleasing thriller. It has a couple of twists at the end that some people are baffled by, but it's much more of a character piece, I think.
Yes, it certainly is. Yeah. Because you got the lovely Monica as well in it.
Monica
in the background.
Tom Jane, yeah.
Tom Jane, of course, yes. Punishing people. Because I'm trying to think what I was going to say now. Never mind. I'll come back to that.
But it was really one of the great experiences of my career, actually, working with those guys on a small budget independent film where you could, where it was just about filmmaking and great acting and great, smart dialogue. Peter Iliff and I sort of worked on the script for 5 weeks to write it, and then they went, "Yep, let's do it." And we went and did it.
Because it was, as I say, it's got that element where characters appear in flashbacks as the modern version, and it switched around. Is that a pain to film?
No, it's great. I love that.
Was it? Okay.
They're all telling stories, some of which are lies, some of which are mistakes, and you get to try. We tried out all these different versions of how to do it. There was this great movie called The Boston Strangler back in 1967, I think, with Tony Curtis.
Yeah.
And the second half of the film is Henry Fonda going inside Curtis, who's playing Tony DeSalvo's head. and he's changing his story. Then Henry Fonda's wandering around with him through his memories, and it's a fantastic movie. And we took it a step further about Morgan walking to Gene's memories, and a lot of walking to a lot of different how they remembered stuff. And it was, well, I mean, it's like life, isn't it? You remember stuff the way you want to, not the way it necessarily is, I think.
Sure. Could you use the same thing in Sleepyhead in Thorn?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, in Thorn Sleepyhead, which was a really daring idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a fun film or TV film.
Yeah.
But yeah, was it David Morrissey? Is it?
David Morrissey and Aidan
Yeah,
Gillen.
he did The Reaping as well with him.
Yes, I did after that. Yeah.
Which how did he do the locusts in that? Because were they real? Most of them? Or?
No, there were a few real ones, but mostly they're digital. It was very complicated. God, it was complicated. But in the end, I thought it was quite good, that locust sequence, because when you read it, you go, "Oh, how can this be, really effective?" But the film was so hampered by disaster. That film. Yeah, we were there for Katrina and Rita. We got the whole. Everything got destroyed twice, and all the crew lost their homes, and it was an awful time. I was supposed to be out there for 3 or 4 months. I was there for a year almost in the end. We kept on going, coming back. And all the locations we were in the middle of shooting were just destroyed. And as far as you could see, there were dead animals across the landscape, was covered in bugs, and it was. I mean, much worse for the locals than for us. But it was. It was quite shocking. Idris Elba and Hillary. And Swank, and it was a very, very logistical difficult film to make because of all of that. And I saw a lot of really disaster, but you see a lot of I met a lot of heroes from that time too. I think it was pretty
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, some good, because I quite enjoy the film. Is just the twists and everything. You never know where it's going to go.
I thought it was an okay film. I don't think it was received very well. I don't think at all. But I didn't know why particularly. I thought the ending was a tiny bit, Christian and cheesy. And the script was being worked on the whole time. Partly because of all the problems we had, and partly because of just trying to get it right and make some sense, I think.
Yeah. Was that before David became the governor, or after? I can't think now. Must have been after. Before, must have.
The governor.
The Walking Dead.
Oh right, yes, that was well before then.
Yeah. Oh, we got the Irish contingent saying the accents in Blown Away were kind of laughable here in Ireland, but it was a very popular film here. No one can get the Irish accent outside of Ireland. It's just one of those things. It's still fun.
Well, I said, I think the two actors really got the accents great after months of rehearsal, but then we had to remove them, and it was
crazy, isn't it?
Frustrating. Oh God. Yeah. Especially for me being a Brit. My parents are all Welsh. My grandparents only spoke Welsh, actually.
Right.
And my father, who just died recently, he spoke Welsh as his first language. So I'm used to accents, and I'm used to all that kind of stuff. And it was such a drag that, as I said, none of us saw it coming at all. Not even the American producers or anyone. Everyone thought it was fine, and then audiences just really rebelled against the accent. Yeah.
Crazy. Is it the test audience that didn't like it, or is it one of those situations? People in a mall, random people in a mall didn't like it.
They don't like the film, but they said we don't know what they're talking about, and it's Americans often don't understand.
No.
A lot about outside America. Even though when I'm down south in the States, like in the Reaping and stuff, a lot of the Southern accents is very similar to the Irish accent in some way. Well, there are elements of it, And there are so many Irish people in America, New York, and all that sort of stuff. And Boston. It's quite that they couldn't understand. It was we were showing to an LA audience, I guess, West Coast one.
Well, yes, and then I guess you had the Irish drinking Guinness, which is a faux pas, isn't it?
Drinking Guinness.
Yeah, apparently the Irish aren't a fan of the Guinness themselves.
I think they are. God, I spent a lot of time in Boston. They were big fans, and also when I've been there, they were big fans too. I don't think that's true that they don't like it.
There's no head on the one that Lloyd Senior has though when he's in the bar with Tommy Jones.
Lloyd and Tommy Lee had a bad day that day, and neither of them could remember their lines.
Right.
I don't know what was wrong with something. Either there was something wrong with the script, or I didn't work it out. But we had to literally try and do it line by line in the end. And so the beers were sad. But I thought, you know what? I don't give a shit. I don't really care. Who cares about continuity?
Only one pedantic person.
That really
30 years later.
Out of the scene. A lot of the great actors I've ever worked with don't give a shit about continuity. They just do, they act. So.
Well, yes, if you're worrying about something like that, you're in trouble. It's like Lloyd picked the wrong day to give up Guinness, but yeah. So yes, where is it? My notes. I usually have 2 screens, so I've got my notes written down here. Mm-hmm. Horny with Denise Van Outen. Does she make you horny?
Well, it was a fun project, I produced the thing with Richard Jobson, and they're all letters from people from Time Out, and I chose that one because I just thought it was such a hoot with Tom Bell and Denise. And we had 11 different stories, I think. Was it 10 or 11 different stories, different directors?
Yeah, because you only get a few minutes each, don't you?
But I thought it was funny. I enjoyed it. I've done Californication and Peter Sellers and stuff, and House of Lies, and I think a bit of dark, good thing. I think.
Yeah, because who was the old lady, the famous one, isn't it?
Liz Smith.
Liz Smith. I keep thinking Beryl Reid's the other one. Yes, Liz Smith. Bless her. She was having fun.
She was great. Yeah. True pro. Because we were shooting down in an old railway station that doesn't work anymore in London, but it was originally used for Churchill and stuff, just for the Second World War. It was just for them and no one else, and so it didn't have a lift or anything. So you just carry all the equipment down these stairs, and it was and Liz didn't give a shit. She came down the stairs, did her job, hung around on set all day, and left. It was good.
I love that. Matt B. Moving, Predator 2 is highly underrated. I love that ending. Yes, I think it's the first. I didn't see the first film because I was not 18, so I saw the second film in the cinema. So yes, as it is in Britain, we don't have NC-17s.
Right.
So I think that was one of the first 18s I saw. It was that and Total Recall, I think, within a year each other. Yeah,
it was pretty violent. I guess it's not a PG-15 or whatever it is. What is it in England? You have 15. We have 15.
Yeah, back then I think in the cinema it was PG-12, 15, 18 back then, wasn't it? But yeah, but a lot of 18s were cut by the BBFC even after the Americans had cut them here.
Really?
Yeah. Mostly martial arts stuff, but I think like Cliffhanger was edited and stuff like that before it was given a 15 in the UK. Just some of the gore.
Was that very violent? I can't remember that being.
I think it's mostly there's a few scenes. Like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer getting kicked by around the football.
That is a scary film. That one. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, Elm Street. I was gonna say that's the UK theatrical cut, I think, which is on the VHS, has more gore in it than the theatrical version in the US, I think.
Oh, really?
There's a few scenes, just a few bit extra frames, like you say. But what's the funniest memory you have about Elm Street 5? Says Slipknot Band.
Let's see. I think the cinematographer Peter Levy, who's done a lot of film, he and I appeared as 2 of the 1,000
maniacs.
Fathers of Freddy. I think there's a couple of moments I was still in there, I think, and that made us directing while we were covered in, dirt and in rags. Trying to do a bit of, matricide. But oh God, what's the actor who plays Freddy?
Robert Englund.
Robert Englund. He was hilarious and a very sweet, theatrical, funny bloke. And there was so many funny scenes. Freddy being born, and then people coming out of each other's stomachs, and it was so outrageous. And I sort of made up the Escher sequence at the end. It was mind bending to shoot. We'd all be like standing on our heads trying to figure out which.
Oh, of course, yeah.
There'll be models and sets and split screens, but we did have one moment I thought, which is because we weren't really thinking straight. There's a scene a shot where Freddy's arm gets ripped off. It lands on the ground and turns into about 50 tarantulas. So one of the geniuses came and said, "Look, and tarantulas don't like being together." So he painted about 25 ones red and 25 green, and we put them all in this kind of mold on the floor with walls that when they dropped the wall, they would all scatter.
Right.
So his thing lands on the ground and turns into spiders, they all scatter. But no one had thought about, how do we capture them up? So we now had an old shoe factory, which is full of some of the more dangerous spiders in the world. So we couldn't shoot at them for ages. We had to send people in there with hazmat suits to kind of sort them out while we went shot something else. But it was out of the box thinking in those days. Non-union,
all practical.
Not as practical as it should be, I think.
Yes, I can say in Ghost in the Darkness used real lions. Surely that was a bit dangerous.
We did actually. Stan Winston made some lion heads, which we used for close-ups every now and then when it was too dangerous to use a real one. Because part of the problems with the Ghost was we had to take trained lions and untrain them back to their, their hunting selves. So it was dangerous to get them amongst people when they were trained to attack. You could.
Right.
It was ever getting a shot was quite hard, but Stan made some fantastic animatronics. They're beautiful. Because we're in the middle of nowhere and it was pouring with rain often, we got flooded and lightning and this and that. It was hard to actually use them as much as we intended.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. We got Ramon from the Netherlands. First of all, thank you, Mr. Hopkins, for giving us all these great films. I have a question. He's going through his VHS collection and found movie Chains from 1989.
That's not me, I don't think.
I didn't see that list. I was just questioning that one. Unless it's in a different name. Is it Dangerous Games, different name? In different countries?
No, I don't think I've done something called Chains.
He'll come back to that in a second then. But I will take one last question coming up to the hour. Yes, Lost in Space, of course. Could you return to it, the director's cut?
Well, I'm actually in April. We're remastering the whole thing, that film and Nightmare on Street 5 actually. So I'm going to look at. We didn't finish the second half of the film. We didn't finish the effects, and we had to get it out. And so a lot of the stuff, especially right at the end, is not as good as it could be. But it was a very ambitious film. We shot it in 1997, 1998, long before these visual effects had really ever been done before. We were the first people to do that thing of people in midair, slow motion, and track around them. But we just did it with still cameras. But once you create those effects, then they become a part of a library of software other people can use. So we were creating stuff all the way. I think we had 2,700 shots in that film of visual effects shots, and we're on stage on a giant set that's on springs with children and all the actors are in suits that cost £100,000 each with lights on them, which are really difficult to get in and out, let alone almost have a pee, with a giant 2-ton robot that could kill you if it goes wrong. So getting a shot off was a really big deal in that film.
Right.
And then towards the end, when we realized we had to get the film out, a lot of it was rushed, and a lot of post-production kind of went askew, I think. We had originally it was John Williams doing the score because he did the TV and he got sick, so he could. Jerry Goldsmith, who I just done Ghost with, was doing it.
Okay.
But then we moved the because we kept on pushing the date, Jerry could no longer do it, even though he prepped it. And then Bruce Broughton came and so it was all a bit of a mess. You know, probably should have put it off 6 months. But
yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it in the cinema, and I enjoyed it the other night.
I think young children at the time loved it. I got lots of fan mail from them. They got it.
So yeah, Ali loves it. Josh loves it. Massively underrated. It is. Funny, still holds up because it's all real sets, isn't it? How many?
Yeah. There was some enormous.
So great.
Yeah, even the planet was a set, and even this huge spaceship sets were. Yeah, it was probably one of the last big, fully set movies that were made. I think before everything went completely digital.
Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah, because episode 1 would have come out the year or two later, wouldn't it? But it's all green screen. But Ramon says it was screenplay based on this movie changed because that had a lot of plot similarities. So I guess I don't know.
Oh, I haven't seen Change.
No, I don't know Change.
Yeah,
I'll have to check it out. But there we go. So yeah, just say Lost in Space is great. I love the scene where Matt LeBlanc is shooting those biomechanical spiders. Yes, Matt LeBlanc is pretty good in that. He does a convincing.
I thought so. I hadn't seen Friends. I didn't really know who he was. So when I met him, I thought, oh, this guy's great.
Yeah.
And then they said, oh, you can't have Matt LeBlanc because everyone thinks of him just as Joey from Friends. I haven't seen it, so I started watching it. I loved it.
Yeah.
But he had to be shooting it too during a lot of the film, so he had to go back and forward every week. He'd go and do 3 days and shoot an episode there, and come back and do 3 days with us, back and forward, back and forward. But he's a real trooper. He's a great guy.
So. Yeah, he was great in it. And then, of course, they sampled him for the the Apollo 440 song. He's a lot of quotes from the film in that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, great performance. Oh, yeah, we solved this question. So, yeah, it wasn't copied from Chains.
All right.
Right. So, yes, we're up to the hour. So, I'm going to let Mr. Hopkins go. It's getting dark over there on the Thames.
Thank you, Gareth. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This is amazing.
So many of my films in the last week, but there we go.
No, I had a good time. Well, it was you and Russ Meyer films, so I was
Oh, fun.
bit of differences.
Great. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for people in the chat anyway. And I'll let Mr. Hopkins go. So thanks everyone, and
have a great weekend. Okay.
Exactly. It is Friday, isn't it? The weekend started here. Thanks everyone. Goodbye.
All right.